Okay guys, I'm trying to give you a decent video here where you could understand the way that I understand. Now, I'm not a physics major. I'm not some like super brilliant guy that's been to college for 15 years or any of that, So I'm going to give you the best way that I can understand this stuff, the way that I do. It's all about nature, the way that nature flows. So as far as magnets and copper and the way all these things function in unison in these devices, I'll give you the best explanation that I can. I think I was doing it at another time here somehow. So where I'm going to start here is at the idea. Where the hell is my little rag? I have a little rag that I'm looking for. So I'll try to, hang on. All right, so I'm going to try and explain this the best way that I can understand it for you guys, okay? So I've got magnets all over the place, and I'm building these things with those magnets. The magnets are important for a bigger range of draw. So you're creating a draw. You're creating a big giant current of something that you don't see. You don't know that it's there. It runs through your body every day. It's the human biofield, the human toroidal field. That's a real thing, like what they've always called the soul or the spirit. That's a real thing, right? But it's both positive and negative energy. The more one side gets jacked up, the other side starts to become weaker. This is oxidative stress versus grounding. So oxidative stress is from static potential. You hit something with charge, it fluffs up, flares up, and right. So anyway, I want to talk about the copper rods. I want to talk about the magnets. This is just one phase of how critical this is all going to get. So you guys are paying to be in this group so that you can learn the science behind it. If you're interested in this is the most important, the way that the science works with all of it, and I want to give you your money's worth, but you're going to make that money back when you understand why I'm telling you things the way that I am, okay? So I want this to be extremely valuable to you, and I'm going to put it in the simplest terms that I can for like all people to understand. The way that I understand it. I'm not some world-class physicist or any of that. I'm pretty smart. I figure out how things work, and I got to figure out a vocabulary to describe those things. So it's just the way that my brain works and the way that I see it and the way that I've learned it through these different kinds of books that I read. All right, so I just want to talk about one pipe, okay? You take one copper pipe. Let's just say we take this one copper pipe and it looks something like this, all right? So that's just copper pipe. You have a positive static charge above here, and you have a negative charge that is in the ground, all right? The ground itself has a negative charge on a magnet. As a magnet, it has a negative charge. All right, so that is a draw side. That's where a vortex or static potential wants to run to, is into the ground. It wants to diffuse itself into the ground, all right? So that's why when you're doing electroculture and you put a copper wire around bound around a stick, you do it in a counterclockwise fashion, because from the top down to the earth in the northern hemisphere, right? Not out past where the sun is. The polarity changes because of where the sun is located, how the charge is affecting things on the earth. That's why the polarities are different in Australia versus everywhere else, all right? So the moon looking upside down and all that stuff. So this vortex now, all right? You're generating a vortex. If I put a magnet here suspended in the air with a couple pieces of wire or whatever, and I put my south side up, that's the same draw as the earth. So I'm compounding and adding to that draw, that static potential draw. All of this wants to run into that magnet just like the earth. So these are called eddies as they go. It's like a current in a creek, right? There will be one main current flowing out of rock, and what's distributed after in that stream of flow. If I've got a rock here, the fish like to hang out behind that rock because of these eddies. it flares its scales open, and it can grab onto this current that is creating these little back swirls, these little eddies they're called, right? That's why the fish doesn't have to kick its fins to get propelled forward in a long current, right? So all things behave the same. This current, like electricity, positive flow to negative, just in a stream. So that fish flares open its scales, and those little eddies are left over from that, right? That's how the fish can stay there without kicking its fins or any of that stuff, all right? So just talking about current, the way that current works just in nature, that's a big part of how it all goes, okay? So positive, negative, there's a lot of miscommunication and intended confusion about what's positive, south, negative, right? So if there is a south draw on the earth, that means that everything is positively charged, wants to go this way. That means it's being drawn into a flow of things. What's down there? Water. Water is magnetic. Water is magnetic naturally, right? Except for the water that's been ionized up in the sky. So the sun hits it, it ionizes it, breaks it into little particulates. They float up in the sky and they become electrically charged until they bond onto they become polarized by that sun, by the charge of that sun. So now you got a water molecule. Positive, negative happens because the sun hit that molecule. They bind themselves together like magnets. South to north. Right now I got one big water droplet. It does it again and again and again and again. And next thing I got a water droplet with an electron skin around it. That electron skin is positively charged. The water itself is positively charged. This is, you get your energy from the sun. The sun shines onto the water vapor. This is the natural process of how water is brought back down to earth. So that is no longer magnetic. That is energy-rich water drawn to the earth because of static potential. So the static potential now, that's all created by the sun. The magnetic potential is different. So that electron skin, they call that the exclusion zone, right? Why does that sack of water hold itself together? This is what you're harnessing, that energy that does this, right? That electron skin, that positively, it's still positive to negative. All this is positive to negative, all inside, but there's an electron skin. They call that the fourth phase of water, okay? Fourth phase of water is the electron value in that water. So naturally, water from the earth is negatively charged. That's why chameleons grow things back. You're not chameleons, but... All right, so I want to work on the eddies thing. Little eddies are left over. So this is just one copper tube. The attenuation of this copper tube. How electrical potential travels across the earth is every so many inches of, as you increase upward, there's more static potential as you climb toward the sun. All right. This static potential running at an antenna, let's just say we turn this into an antenna. Now this moves this way. This tightens up. They want to take the path of least resistance. They're getting over the hump, right? So right here, this is why antennas work the way that they do. All of that energy is drawn into this copper pipe. All right, so that's the hell is the word? Jesus. Give me a second till I think of this word, because it's important. All right, inductance. It's inducted, right? All of these, so this static charged air, so this is positive. Let's just give these all values. The closer to the earth it is, the more negatively charged it is. The less positively charged, not the more negatively, because this is all positive static potential. Okay, so you got a level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. As you increase, climbing upward, eventually you'll run to where all of this energy is not in this little cluster. This is why church steeples are shaped this way, to grab onto as a point. That grabs onto all the energy. That's why they're always made of copper or some kind of metal, church steeple, right? So you put copper inside of a paint can. When you put that copper inside of the paint can, you're creating an electrochemical reaction between the copper and the steel. Negative ions are naturally, just like this, negative ions are drawn out of the steel and projected upward. Okay? So we're talking about one copper tube as an antenna right now. The only thing that copper will do as it's suspended is attract everything, and then it'll become overcharged with all of that static potential if it was levitating in the air. The moment I ground this, all of that static potential feeds the earth. This is positive energy now. Okay? But there's still a south draw. So just like this magnet suspended above the earth, there's a south draw. That's because of the way that magnets work. North is your flow side. South is your draw side. There's a south to north draw from the surface of the earth, okay? This is why I'm trying to explain the magnet thing to you guys so you know fully well like how the whole thing works. All right? So we have repulsion when we use the same side of magnets, right? So you have to find the south pole. If you're going to go through and get a whole bunch of magnets, you want to figure out, all right, this is your neodymium, this one. So it's a little bit stronger than normal, all right? You can see, as I put this magnet here, I'm going to flip it now. And there. So my north side of my compass, which is actually the south, I know it's funky, it's hard to... So this side would be my south pole of that magnet, using a compass to differentiate or figure out, like, where's the pole of a magnet. These are cheap. Go buy a cheapo on Amazon. This is all you need. You don't need some expensive magnetometer or any of that stuff. You can go and get one of these if you want to, but this will give you the values of how much of magnetic potential there is in the things that you're buying. So this is a magnetometer. Now, where I want to go with this is to get you guys to understand how the magnets actually work. All right, because the magnets are an incredible part of how this all goes. And you're creating 10 times the amount of activity, you're creating 10 times the amount of flow, right? Than the regular paint can. So the entire area around you will be harmonized. Okay? So the copper is attenuation. It grabs onto electrons, negative or positive. It's naturally negative. So copper ions, when this is oxidated by an right? So when I run an electrical charge into that, there are copper ions that are generated. There are negative ions generated by it because it comes out of the copper. So they're driven out of it. Those negative ions is what happens when a piece of steel wool is attached to the side of this piece of copper. This is an inductor. It draws this, so basically the soul, the thing that binds that steel together, draws out and into the copper. And there's no propulsion system. It draws it in naturally as an antenna. The positive static charge is attracted to the negative charge of the copper, right? So as this copper is grounded, it's naturally drawing that positive energy out of the steel wool, right? Steel wool or whatever. Let me pause this because I'm forgetting where the hell I'm going here. All right, I just took a breath. Grab this book if you can get a hold of it, because it's about what he calls bions is actually ions. Negative and positive ions is how this whole thing is actually the way that it works. He calls them bions. That's Wilhelm Reich. If you go to the museum, you can pick this book up. You can pick it up online too. But this explains the static, the thing that's fluffy, and the other thing that's compressive. The magnet is drawing in and compressive. He's explaining the male and the female. The female is magnetic. The male is static, right? So you think about it so now anyway, I don't want this to get too confusing as I'm trying to, because I'm not a textbook teacher or I'm not a textbook professor or anything like that. I just understand it, I understand it, and that's all. That's all I'm trying to get you guys to understand the way that I understand it. That's the difficult part because there's some weird shit happening here. All right. So Now, when you're creating a draw. You want to draw that static out of the sky, right? You need to draw the static out of the sky because the static is the fabric that the water molecules that have become ionized by the sun, once they become ionized, they're now polarized, and the water vapor draws itself together on that ionization, right? So the negative ions you're putting into the sky, the positive ions you're drawing out of the sky. What he calls bions are literally just ions, okay? Wilhelm Reich. So now we're talking about one copper pipe here, all right? We're talking about the draw, this positive static, down to the earth, all right? And the reason I'm explaining this to you guys, you paid a lot of money, and this is just a brief overview. I'm giving you the briefest, simplest way that I can explain it the way that I understand it for you guys to be able to chew on it, you know? You might be smarter than me in these fields. You know, I might be saying something wrong. Correct me, that's fine. I'm not offended by that. You know, I want to bring the cream to the top. You know, I want everybody to be able to understand how all of this shit works so that you can teach your kids and we don't ever have to go through all this shit again, all right? So what they're spraying is a positive static. That's called biostatics. Any fibers that they have in their water molecules, like, you know, graphene that bonds itself together, you know, that has been manufactured, like pig worms on your mask, right? Like the Chinese pig worms. You got to look these things up. Those things attach themselves to your face, and they're charged with a static, and infrared ignites that and makes it a readable substrate. Your face becomes a readable substrate because of the positive charge that is a radiant thing. That's what all the facial recognition and infrared on the back of your camera is all about. It's all about that stuff, right? So this is the way that energy naturally flows above the earth, right? But there is always a static draw. This is all static, and this is all magnetic. All right? What I wanted to talk about was the eddies. The eddies and the control of these eddies, just like the fish that I drew, those little eddies out off of the rock. The rock becomes the inhibitor, and now you have the little back channels caught out in nature. So those little back channels is what the fish, you know, flares its scales open to catch. So it doesn't have to move. It just opens up its scales and it can just hover right where it wants to be. Very gentle little sway to hold itself upright in the water. That's all you'll see out of the tail with the fish, right? As an analogy. So we're going to talk about the paint cans now. And with the paint cans, you're talking about one copper rod right here, and you're talking about the draw that copper has on this steel wool. So this would be more of a positive charge in comparison to the copper. The copper is negative ions. When it oxidates, right, that's people go out and they spray copper pipes and say, look, the clouds are going away magically, like this Napoleon blown apart idiot over in Europe. He's doing all the orgonite stuff with it. He's covering all this stuff up with epoxy. He's destroying the capability of that piece of copper and the quartz crystal by encapsulating it into a non-conductive material, a non-radiant material, an absorbent material, that being the epoxy, that continually shrinks away from the crystal that he's putting in there, right? So as that steel wool stops contacting, now if I wrap all of this in an epoxy, what happens when the steel wool connectivity is no longer there? It breaks away, this stuff all rusts, and the epoxy is holding the steel wool. There's no contact anymore. So he goes out and he sprays the copper till everything is green, right? You get the copper ions are generated, which are negative in nature, right? And if he was smart enough to put a quartz crystal down here on this side, he would have his wave propulsion on the inside of that tube, right? So I don't know if he puts the crystal in the bottoms of these tubes or in the top, but if the quartz crystal is right here and it's radiant, it's under tension, it's creating more vibrancy, those negative ions that are drawn into So that's negative. I don't know if this isn't considered positive, but there is a draw. It's an electrochemical reaction between the two of those. It's what the hell is it called? It's an exothermic reaction. So the heat that's generated by those two contacting each other, it's called an exothermic reaction. So anyway, the negative ions in the steel, it is negative ions. So negative ions are drawn into the copper. The quartz crystal is radiant, right? All these little ions are being fired up. They're all negative. They're all being fired up into the sky. The reason they need to be fired up in the sky is because you got to give something back from what you're taking. This, as an antenna, is grabbing onto all of the static in the air. It's grabbing onto all of the static and drawing it down into the earth, right? On the central rod of the paint can. That's if this is the central rod of the paint can. Not the others, but the one that sticks up the highest, like the church steeple. Every town that you go into, the church steeple is the highest point. Why? Why? To keep the priest healthy. To keep the priest healthy and vibrant, right? To draw energy to that person that's on the altar, the person whose head happens to be up higher than everybody else inside that room, right? The king and the queen with their golden crown, right? To draw that energy into the electrical water of the brain in the way that the conductivity of the brain works, but to harmonize it using gold in the crown, to harmonize it before it can enter the brain. So it creates an equilibrium around the brain. All of that neuronal activity that happens inside of the brain is when you're wearing copper, where it is attenuated, versus gold. Like gold is the best thing you could wear as a crown, or even if it was a gold wire or a gold chain, gold necklace. Where are all the gold necklaces these days? So all of that static is brought in, but it is harmonized before the electrical water, magnetic water in the brain can absorb it. So it's purified. That's what the gold is for. It's for purifying the energy coming from above. So you're the guy standing on the altar, sitting in the throne up higher than everybody else in the room. You're the one gathering all that positive energy first. Okay? So we're talking about paint cans. This is just the static charge now, all right? The sun creates static, positive energy. The copper is an antenna to grab onto that positive energy, okay? It's a natural draw to the earth, south to north. North is below. The eddies is what I want to talk about. Because when you take the magnets and you start putzing around with those in your cookies, as you're, where the hell are they here? These aren't those, but if I had magnets in these, right, at the base of each of these pipes, and I have a magnet down here on the bottom where that pipe sits, only these get magnets with the south side on the bottom. South is down here. There's a reason for it, all right? And I'm going to explain it. So you have a paint can, simple drawing. I've got one rod that is pure continuity from the highest point of, just like the king's crown in the court, the highest point inside of that room is what gets all of the energy. Okay, so it's just like a typical, everybody knows antennas are up high so that they could be the first thing to grab the energy. The outer 6 points here, these are creating an outward propulsion of piezoelectrical energy. This is your shotgun primer right here at the base of that pipe. All right? So right here, this is where your quartz crystal would go in that pipe. The quartz crystal is generating these little energy waves. I put that quartz crystal under tension by taking a piece of cork. I could take cork, I could take tape, I could take whatever. I don't know if you can see it or not. See, so there's a piece of quartz in there under tension. It's being squeezed by the cork. I jam this down into the pipe, and there's tension on the outside. There's now compression that increases the piezoelectrical effect, which drives more waves out. Once you're there, And now that you're starting to understand, this central rod is stuck in the ground. So just as you have a positive draw, like we just drew out on the previous image, right? This positive static charge, right? We're giving them levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? These different levels of electrical charge. You have the same thing in the earth. What the distances are, I don't know. I've never researched it. So the deeper this is, the more ground you get. The more water you have here, the more connectivity you'll have with the earth as the grounding feature of this device. All right? So you got positive ions and negative ions. The positive ions you're drawing down into the pipe. They're positive because they're charged by the sun. The sun comes out, it charges the hell out of everything, right? And they want to travel to the south draw of the earth. North. They're positively charged. They're male, female, basically, is all it is. So these are doing the same thing, but not to the same level that these are. The central rod gets no crystal. If you were going to put a crystal in there, you would put it in the top upside down if you wanted to try that. I personally have not done that. So that would probably help to drive these ions, you know, as this guy's talking about the Bion experiments, right? Ions, positive, negative, everything's positive, negative. So right there, you've got the static all over the place and the magnetic. Or this is whatever. This is the magnetic. This is the magnetic, but that's drawn backwards. It looks like a uterus. All right, now you're drawing static potential. The highest point of this thing is what's going to be grabbing onto all of that charge, like a radio antenna, right? That electrochemical reaction that you create in here, right? The induction of not positive, but negative ions, right? You're drawing negative ions into the tube, through the tube. The tube itself is the antenna. All right, so you're creating a vortex here. And up, these are up. This is down between those. So you're creating a whole bunch of eddies. Just like the rock in the stream, you're creating a whole bunch of eddies. Now you're going to start playing games with magnets, and the magnets are going to get all messed up on you if you don't do it the right way. So the closer I have these magnets in the cookies, in the base of those tubes, the closer I have those to the ground, the more outward propulsion there will be. So the further I sink this can down to the ground, the more pole-to-pole reactivity I end up with. So that'd be south to south. So all of these magnets in the base of your cookies are down on the bottom, with the south side down. Because of the polarity, there's a south side on the earth, right? Also down. These are repellent of each other. What that does is it increases the flow of electrons up and out. So as the quartz crystal is under pressure, it's already got wave propagation. All you're doing here is creating a vortex. But as Victor Schauberger would say, the vortex energy is what you're creating. As one comes down and in, the other must go up and out, right? So you're creating a big giant vortex is basically all you're doing. And all of this stuff up above is drawn into the central pipe and slammed down into the ground. These outer 6 rods, that's why there's so many on the outside, is to compensate for all of the energy going in through the center. So as you're looking at a giant toroidal field here. Or not a toroidal field, but a giant vortex of energy flow. Don't start getting into wrapping wires around these and all that stuff because it gets complicated. If you're gonna and you decide to do that, I'm recommending against it. Please don't start having problems. You want to experiment with one unit or something like that, fine. But if you're gonna mass produce these, I need you to understand the whole magnet part of it. Okay, so what the hell what did I just say? I don't even know what I just said. Sometimes I feel like I talk just to talk, man. And I know I get long-winded, so I apologize. I hope I don't make this too long for you guys. I'm going to put this right into the group I'm so psyched that I can do that now. I can put this right into the censored page. I suffered something today. I don't know what it was, but my mind is completely blank like all day today. I don't know what that, like I can't think of anything. Right now it's just like I'm taking everything in me to think and maintain a sentence. I don't know what the hell happened. So what you're basically creating here is an energy reciprocity machine, okay? All of your steel wool in here, the more you unbunch it and expand it, the more of this static potential it'll draw into the can, right? That static potential also ends up increasing the flow over this outward projection of negative ions. These are all positive static ions being drawn into the ground. So in this vortex right now, what you just created is it's kind of like a capacitor. All of the energy is all jammed up into one location, right? So that static potential and the magnetic potential is all harnessed. Everything is going on inside of this can. So those eddies, again, now you're going to have a whole bunch, just like the rock. You have quartz crystal projecting this up and out. That, just think of it as a shotgun shell. You have a whole bunch of ions in here getting fired out of this tube. All right? Those are the negative ions in reciprocity with the positive ions you're drawing out of the sky. The positive static potential is what holds the polarized water vapor together up above you. They spray more and more of it up there. So that's why these things work. Is you are harmonizing the atmosphere. You're taking the overcharged atmosphere out of it and drawing it into the ground and giving that energy to the plants and the fauna and whatever else around your property. That's why the whole grounding thing is a real thing, very real. You know. So anyway, the closer you get this can with your magnets down at the bottom, the more repulsive energy is driven into these pipes through inductance. All right, so that inductance is firing, and I'm not an electrician, I'm only a carpenter, so if I'm using the wrong word, correct me. But the inductance of those negative ions into the tubes is upward and outward. The copper itself becomes the antenna. The copper itself is what continues that draw downward. So as the energy is being drawn into here, right, the other energy's got to go somewhere else. You got those little eddies of current going in the opposite direction. So as this energy is driving down in, the measurement of how forceful that is, there's a fine-tuned amount of that right here inside of this can happening. But all this conductive material in here, steel and copper, it kind of throws mayhem on the inside of trying to figure out what is exactly what, you know? So these negative eddies, you know, these positive eddies that are created, like just like the regular current of the water, it does the same thing here. So you create a reciprocity. As these waves go upward and outward, they're a wave, right? You're bringing one down in and you're putting one up and out. You know, if you look at the Cancer sign, right? Same thing. So there's always reciprocity there. You're giving something back, but it's healthier. You're increasing flow. So you drive that down to the earth. Now your south to south polarity is creating a push of negative ions, upward and outward. Your top magnets, the distance between these and your top magnets that you put here on your cans, that would be what they call the Jed pillar in ancient Egypt. So those would be what way? Just think about it yourself, how these things, how I'm explaining these, or trying to explain these, what direction do these magnets have to be now? There has to be a downward, southward pull, right? Or a southward draw. So this is all static. We want to do the same thing we did down here. If the pull is north to south, because we have our south pole down on these magnets, right? South pole, north pole, south. The draw on magnets always travels south to north. Okay? So this is repulsion now. You got two like magnets pushing upward and outward. That's the flow side, is the north side of a magnet. All right, the north side is the flow side, where everything will travel through the magnet and up and out. So that's another compounding factor on how to get the negative ions up and out. And it's also drawing in some of the eddies. Those positively charged eddies are helping to project as well. So you've got all these things working together in a vortexian manner. All right. Sounds like a bunch of nut job stuff right now. Just watch the video a couple times. get curious, look around on what I'm talking about here. So these all have to be south up now. All these magnets here have to be south up because you're increasing the flow of electrons down into the earth to be grounded off, to feed that reciprocity of the outer pipes, right? You're feeding this vortex. There's an equal and opposite reaction to everything, right? So let's just say, as esoterica goes, the Hebrews, the Essenes, the Freemasons, the whoever, right? There's the square and the compass, and the G is gnosis. That's both are between. What the hell was I just going to do there? Shouldn't have said that. It's the balancing of these harmony. You're creating a harmonization between the two. That sky right now is static charge. That's a static charge. That's what they spray a bunch of things out that become charged by the sun, and they start sticking to everything magnetic. That's what all of this Morgellons or whatever you want to call it is all about, which I believe are pigworms, Chinese pigworms. Once I went and I did all the reading about that like 3 or 4 years ago. So I think they're Chinese pigworms. They attach to your face, and I won't get into all of that stuff. That I read a lot about it though. But the point that I was getting at is the vortex, right? This was a representation of positive energy, the male, the upward and outward, the feminine energy, inward and downward, right? So there's my negative energy, inward and downward, positive energy, upward and outward. So that's why the vortexes are shaped that way. You think about it that way, This is much older than they say. It's not about the, that's all about the Mesopotamians and even earlier cultures than that. So I hope you guys get something out of that. So I'm just trying to explain to you the best way that I understand all of this stuff, right? And it might sound a little bit more complicated than you want to get involved with, but once you understand those factors now, you'll understand that what you're doing is natural. You're creating harmony. You're creating harmony when somebody else is creating an imbalance. That imbalance is what is making everybody sick. That's the oxidation. You're driving positive energy into something. It like fire to a kernel of popcorn, right? It pops. It flares up and outward. So that's the same thing happens with oxidative stress in your body. Too much static charge within the body creates these flare-ups of cells and cellular membranes and all this other stuff, like popcorn inside your body. So cell phone towers, electrical potential around your body all the time. You are never grounded off because you're always insulated with some form of nylon or rubber or polyester, something or other, right? So you never get to be the device of continuity that you were meant to be. Your feet to the earth, your head to the sky. That's the way things are supposed to be. You're supposed to function like that paint can thing does, So I hope I did a good enough job for you guys here. This is just going to be a small portion in the video or in the post that I'm going to make for you now. That should explain the majority of the science on how the paint cans work. But there's a range on the distances of the magnets and stuff. You can start testing and playing around. What things help to increase that flow, that reciprocity among the positive and negative. This took me a bit to get figured out, but I did it. I did it a while ago. I did it like 3 or 4 years ago. I made I made a coffee can cloudbuster is what I did, and I never put a lid on it. So all the iron oxide that I used, which I still have the bag of, actually, all the iron oxide that I used ended up getting filled and rusted with water from the static charged rain. So it's such a fascinating thing, and it's a beautiful thing because it really inspired me to start reading a lot more about how these things actually work. All these things that are pounded into our brains to get us inundated with like stupidity, like shows like Jackass or any of this kind of stuff. Ha ha ha! I had a good time. We all laugh. Like, this is the way it's supposed to be. Let's go have a couple beers, right? Poison ourselves to death. Some shit we're not supposed to have in our body, right? Like, it's just the way that the direction of society from the beginning of this all. Watching your kids growing up and seeing them falling into it and whatever else. Like, there's a big difference here, man. There's a big difference in what we're meant to be versus what we've been shaped to be. What we've been shaped to be it's kind of a sickening thing. I spent 40 years of my life as that shaped thing until I finally realized it's me that has to do the shaping, not everything around me. It's all internal. It's not all external. What I do with my mind and in my spiritual pursuits, that's what matters by the time I get to the afterlife, which, in my terms, there absolutely is. I far disagree with that thing about Wilhelm Reich. He was a complete, God isn't real kind of thing. I absolutely disagree. There is one great and total positive energy in all things, in unison with that negative energy that makes that one thing tick, the yin and the yang in one embodiment. So I really appreciate you guys jumping in and helping me keep moving with trying to do this, because I got a huge pile of messages to get out to everybody, and I'll cater to this group more than anybody else, because you're going to be spreading this stuff around you. So this is just the science of the paint cans, the way that they work. The other part of this is your sizes actually matter. I know size always matters. So if there's any women in this group, I don't want to hear your goofy shit right now. I know what you're thinking. So size matters, and trying to think. So I think the paint can itself, so the math that I did on this, you need to have the golden ratio. The golden ratio is 1.618. All right, this is God's number. That is the one thing that all things are composed of. God's number. 1 plus 6 plus 1 equals 8. Right? You're doing the digital square root of the number, and then you have 8. That leaves me with 16. 1 plus 6 equals 7. That's the, just this method of reductionism. And it's that's how you get the digital square root of a number, is you just keep adding all your sum totals together, right? So 7, that was the Heka staff in ancient Egypt. I'm done with my presentation on the paint can portion of this. I'll run in through here so I can give you guys something a little interesting to chew on for a while, all right? So as far as the message for today, all that other stuff is over with. This is just for enjoyment, something to kick around in your head for a little bit. You'll probably really enjoy what I have to say here. So 7 was the Heka staff. It was like a dog head. And that was what represented Heka, right? We say the word Heka. That's the equilibrium of things. So the Heka Kasut were those who ruled by dark magic. The Heka Kasut in ancient Egypt. Guess who they were? They claimed to be Semitic people. All right, but the Heka Kasut, they eventually became, like in Greek times, they called them for short, or in the Greek language, they called them the Hyksos. And now what I was working on here was this 7. I was working on continuity. In these, so you got 3, right, is the 7 and the merger of that swirl. This is the 7 Heka and the swirl that is all energy. So it's God. The central form of God is 6, and God in the heavens, so the balance of the earth and the sky, the positive, the 9 that always returns to itself. 9 times anything will reduce like this, back down to 9. 9 times 11, right, equals 99. 9 plus 9 equals 18, still equals 9, right? So all this stuff that they've given us for math, it's all obfuscation. It's all to drive you away from understanding the only real numbers you need are right here. Just different octaves of what is right here, But it's all in the way that you see things. You have to be able to start using your brain to see in the inversion of things, So you can look at my hand as 5. I can see my hand in 9. 9 is the magic number, right? For all things, for all life, for reciprocity to exist. 9 is shaped a lot like a vortex energy, right? But on my hand, I can count to 9, and it's not just in the physical things, but also those things that are not there, right? So it's where the positive, the yin meets the yang, right? All this stuff around me is still something, right? I put my hands together. Well, now I got 18, right? 1 plus 8. And again, I end up with 9. And the mind being one of those other kinds of things, So why do you pray? 9 and 9. It's the positive, the negative, both. Your left side of your body is your positive upfeed, your positive charge from the earth that's been given by the earth. That's the up part. They called that the I can't remember the name of it's the snake. It starts with a U. I can't remember the name, but the snake on a pharaoh's hat, right? That was meant for gnosis. The gnosis was they've reached a balance and harmony in the positive and the negative in ancient Egypt. This is like pre-takeover stuff, but so the pharaohs would have the snake was Uraeus is what it was called in Greek times. There was a different name by the Egyptians, but they called that snake with the flared hood on the back. The serpent, that was the Uraeus. That was the thing that went up the arm on. That was the golden spiral that went up in the arm on Cleopatra, right? That's the upfeed of energy. Your kundalini, the spirals within the body with all the chakras and all that stuff. So one is ever flowing upward, one is ever flowing downward. So the static from the earth above, that was a condor. So if you look at all the pharaohs' hats, that was why. That was why there was a snake and a condor head. The condor was the energy from above traveling down through the body and mingling with the snake. And the snake was from the earth, the fire serpent or something they called that, right? That's the way that all things work. It's the way that all energy flows and reacts to each other. Magnetic and electrical and male versus female and whatever, So that was a merger. The 3 was a merger. This is the 369 stuff by Nikola Tesla. The 7 is 1.618 added up, right? So 1 plus 6, right? We already did this through reducing it. But so 7 is God. That's the number that represents God. That came from the shape of the Heka staff. It was a dog head in ancient Egypt. So all that meant was this is ether. This is the 5th element. This is the all-permeating essence in all life. That's what the 7 represents. So they say 7th heaven, right? In Gnosticism, the same thing. So you're bringing the spiral on Earth. Actually, I think something's wrong about this. I can't remember exactly. This is something I did like 4 or 5 years ago. It was a great video, but I enjoyed doing it so much because through these different esoteric books that you read about like Freemasonry and Rosicrucianism and all that, you start learning some really crazy things. And these people are so far beyond us in their simplistic methods of teaching each other things. Everything about the way that we live is just 50 times more complicated than it needs to be. Really. They add a 0 to create the 10. The world goes nuts, right? From that point forward, So understanding the esoteric and the evolution of ancient Egypt and this yearning for learning that I grabbed onto somewhere through COVID. I just wanted to know. I wanted to know more and more and more. When I say no, it's gnosis. The G in the in the Freemasons, that G, everybody says it's for God. I know it's for God. No, you don't know anything. This is the circle. This is the square. This is the harmonization of the 2. The G is actually a 6 because the 6 is central between the 3 and the 9, the heaven and the earth. So that's the merger of the 2. The G is that. The Rosicrucians did that differently. The Rosicrucians did. So the Rosicrucians were like. So theirs was the heart, the flaming heart. you always see like pictures of Jesus with, you'd have a square drawn improperly and a circle. So who was a Rosicrucian, or of the order, or a knight, Knights Templar type of stuff, or of that lineage of royalty and stuff. So Rosicrucianism is kind of born out of that. But Saint Valentine, Rosicrucianism, everything's about the heart. A saint, he's reached gnosis. He's reached pure spirituality. He gets the halo now. He's become saintly in his efforts. Lighter than water, like Jesus. In his purity, he could walk on water. Like, that's what sainthood was all about. It was the merger of the masculine and the feminine mind, to be neutral in all things. I won't get into all that crazy stuff, but so this is where Saint Valentine comes from. This is the merger of the square and the circle, right? So in the circle, I've got 360 degrees unless I quarter it. If I quarter it, I've got 90, 180, 270, and 360, right? 90, 180, 270, and 360. So an interesting thing is, a circle is just an inverted square, right? 9 plus 0, 1 plus 8 plus 0, 2 plus 7 plus 0. It all equals the only number that matters, reciprocity, godliness. So if I split this in half and I drop it down over this square, St. Valentine, like Pac-Man, this is where you get the perfect drawing for the heart, is the Rosicrucian heart. That's where it comes from. So it's the same thing with the Kabbalah, right? The people that are running shit now, the Kabbalah. I won't go into all that. That starts getting bad. Right? But you've got positive energy, upward and outward. 60 degrees on the inside. 60. That's 180, right? 180 degrees. Again, 180 degrees, 60, 60, 60. What do I have? 60 times 6, 360 degrees. What does that equal in the digital square root? 9. What does the heart equal? No matter what way I put it, split it, rearrange it, whatever, it comes back up to 9. Right? I can split this in half. I've got 45 degrees and 45 degrees. It's still 90. Right? The circle, 360 degrees, halved. That's 180 degrees. 180 degrees, right? 1 plus 8 plus 0, 9. 9. Same thing down here, 45. 9. 9. Add them together, 18. 9. So this represents the 9 and the 6 and their reciprocity with each other. It's kind of inverted in a way, but so, I don't know if I'm still live here with you guys. I'm not even live. This is a pre-recorded. I hope that it uploads fine for you. But it's in understanding all these different methods of evolution from one age into the next age. The Greeks, the Gnostics, the Essenes, the Pharisees and Sadducees and Romans and Persians and whoever, what I'm trying to give you guys here is a historical journey into understanding why this as a magical item actually works. The magic is not an evil or bad black magic thing. It actually just represents the 4 elements and the control of them through spiritual processes. Right? And how you create this evil thing. There's an upside down star. What does that mean? Oh my God. It's actually supposed to be an upward star. Like, you look at the American flag, this is the body of all things. is what that star represents. You look at the American flag in a prison, right? This is the human. This is the human. I just showed you what the 9 is, right? The 9 is the all-being essence in all things. The spirit, the soul, the whatever, right? This is earth, water, air, fire, and ether is the 5th element. Ether. Okay, so you need to harmonize your brain. Why did I bring that up? So there's nothing evil about it. They tell you that it's evil, so you stop looking at all of it. You know, so that cyclical feature that is in all natural things, natural organic things. That's where we get the shape for the number 9 and 6. You know, but I forget what this is. It also adds up to the same number, the inside angles of a 5-pointed star. So that's it, guys. I did my best for you today. I'm gonna put this in a video. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm gonna upload this onto Censored or Most Censored.online. I'm gonna upload this on there for you guys that are going to be builders, and I want you to understand the esoteric evolution of where all this stuff came from, how it came to be, why it all matters, why it all changes things. They're cooking us with things that are making the body fluff up and ionize, and the cancers are increased because the harmonization of the body is not there anymore. They're doing the same thing to the earth. This is why your trees are dying, your plants are dying, the bugs stop living, and all that stuff. These devices negate all of that. They run it in reverse. So within 3 weeks of having one of these devices, even without the magnets are there to accelerate the process and compound the flow. So it's like so much electrical potential in the sky, but the cans aren't built in a way that they can absorb all of it. You increase the flow with magnets, well, guess what? You don't have any more backups now, you know. So the only thing you have to do with those cans after you make them, which I'm going to do another video on the production of how to put them together, both with the magnets and without. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope it's worth it for you to be a member of this group. And I hope you start learning other things on your own. You're probably much brighter than me in a lot of regards, in a lot of areas. And if you're here, you want to do the right thing for the people that you love and the place that you love. And you know, that's what the whole goddamn thing is about, man. These bastards get their way. This is going to be the last time mankind gets to do anything. It's going to be all digitized, no control of anything. So when I tell you these things are fucking important, you have no idea. It's so important to do this and get it up and running around you. And it has become my passion within the past couple of years, learning the things that I learned, and I'm very excited that you guys are here and you have this kind of faith in me to help you get your home back from these bastards doing all this shit, you know. So thanks for being a member of the group, and thanks for the subscription. Legitimately, you know, it's going to keep me trying to show people the things that matter, creating a balance where there's disharmony. That's what we all got to start doing. So it's a real spiritual time in the world. You know, we got to veer away from money in some sense, you know, the way that it is. Once we go digital, we're in big trouble. And thanks for watching the whole video. If you did, I really appreciate you guys being members. And if I can help you in any way, feel free to message me. This is my personal email for you guys. You're in this group. I don't mind you giving me... Oh, man, I don't know if I should put that with, like, my bill stuff and all that. All right, so I have Paint Can Brigadier. That's one. Oh, what the hell are the other ones? I'll give you my work email. How's that? That's for my construction company. All right, so it's... Jesus, what is that one? All right, so that is my last name. Take a screenshot here. Rapaski.crs@gmail.com. If you have anything that's pressing or urgent, you can reach me there. I don't want to give my personal, only because it's flooded with all kinds of other crazy stuff. Outside of that, the other one is Paint Can Brigadier. Brigadier. And that's also at gmail.com. All right. What the heck was I going to say here? As far as expanding in your area, getting like building a little trinket shop out of these things, disguising them in other ways, applying your own little touch to it, right? The science part of it has to work for this to be of any value. The paint cans draw the static potential out of the sky. When they spray silica, there's nothing that we can do about it yet. I'm working on that personally. So these definitely work, at least to keep the graphene away. The graphene is what they want stuck to you. So if you can keep the graphene away, you're winning the battle a little bit. The water will be harmonized and purified by the time it lands. Not purified like 100%. Like I still see a little bit floating around in the infrared cameras. I'm getting long-winded, and I didn't mean to do this for this long. So I apologize, guys, for taking up too much of your time if I did. I just want you to get a good grasp on the way that this is all going to work. The next video I'm doing is going to be on how to build them, and then I'm going to try and gather all of the information that I need for you guys. Just scratch this, because I'm probably not even going to look at that. It'll be hard for me to even look at. I want to be able to answer any questions that you might have at all for the promotion of these things, making people understand why they're so necessary. I've done videos on the graphene portion of this. We did equilibrium part 1 and part 2. My phone just flashed a weird white light at me. Not just this one that's here. That was weird. So, all right, I guess that's it. I guess that's it. You guys can reach out to me at any time. I'm glad that you've taken it upon yourself to heal the area that you live in. That's a critical part of it all. So you got good hearts. You're probably not going to get any pats on the back right as of yet. But one day people will be able to see what we just did with the very simple thing. It might not be today. We don't need the pat on the back. Just go and do it and get the people around you taken care of. I take the funds. Anything that I make, I put that I put the majority of any profit actually goes back into what I'm doing with these locally. So I've got 40-50 cans, however I could get them into people's yards around me. That's how psychotic I went about this whole thing, understand it the way that I did, not having as many people around me understand it either. So I started pumping all my money back into the place where I live, so everything was harmonized, and all this shit that they're doing is negated. So if they don't have that static potential, they don't land graphene on you, their AI bullshit is not going to work. That's basically the way that it all goes. The AI-driven and controlled world is not going to work the way that they're planning on if this all works out. So this is why it's so critical to keep it under wraps, to keep it where only people of good nature are going to see it. It's not about profit. It's about survival, like legitimately. And I know that sounds a little bit fringe. It's not. It's not. I mean, I tell you, I can tell you, I've read into the depths of this stuff throughout history. This is like their final goal. Robots running everything, robots running everything, but the robots can't see if there's not graphene on everything. I'll do a video on that if you really, really want me to. I've been doing live videos on that on Facebook for a while, but graphene is the imaging system for AI to learn the physical world, and that's legitimately what they're using 5G for. That's why they're spraying all this in the sky, so we can get into that another time if you're unsure about what it is. Even, I'd rather not get messaged about it, because I do a pretty good job, I think, of explaining what that is really, the way that all works with the graphene, and building this 3-dimensional duplicate of the world for AI to see through infrared imagery, as I'm on my camera with the LED blinding me right now and telling you guys about it, So I'm already a goner when they bring the Terminator, but I really appreciate you guys being here, man. I love it. I love it that you decided to do this for your home and for the people around you. It's not for clout. I'm not here for clout. I'm here for survival, and apparently you guys are too. So This is the Paint Can Brigade. You know, I feel that's so cheesy, but I just think it's awesome. All right, guys. I'll catch you next time. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helped.